And then what gets me and what gets most people is like those little things that you spend hella money on that you don't need to spend money on. Like when you go to Target or you go grocery shopping or you go out to
Listen,
eat.
I knew you were going
Like,
to try to come for me like this. I knew you were going to start talking about this. Hey, friends. Welcome back to today's episode. It's Nikayla here, back with another episode with an awesome guest. Today, I'm delighted to bring in someone who I actually know in real life. That's not always the case, but I had the pleasure of knowing Naseema now for over 4 years, and she is just awesome. And today's episode took so many different turns because there's so much that we can talk about, right? She's a podcaster. She's actually a Podcast Moguls alum. She's also a nurse, and she's a full-time side hustler. She continues to be both a nurse and she's built her own platform, which we'll hear about in the episode. So let me go ahead and read her official bio so you can learn more about her before we jump into the episode. So Naseema is a published author and the founder of Financially Intentional, a platform about personal finance and living life intentionally. Naseema discusses how taking control of her finances has enabled her to overcome bankruptcy, divorce, and break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. She shares her lessons along her path to help others benefit from the freedoms of financial independence. Outside of encouraging people to get their financial act together, Naseema is a mother, labor and delivery nurse, and so much more. Though making six figures for years, she actually struggles with money, and I'm sure so many of us can relate to that, right? Finally, she realized that she couldn't out-earn her financial ignorance. She knew she had to make changes, and by shifting her mindset around money, being consistent and intentional, she has paid off nearly $1 million in debt and grew a six-figure net worth in 3 years without living in deprivation. So I thought this episode would be really helpful for those of us who are trying to balance so much and want to make sure that we are setting a good financial foundation for ourselves in the midst of working, in the midst of side hustling, and so much more. So pull out your notebooks, pull out your iPhone notes, whatever it is, and let's jump right into this episode. All right. Well, welcome to the guest chair, Naseema. I'm so happy to have you here at last.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to be here, Nikayla. Like for real.
You know I'm excited. And we were talking about this before in the pre-show. I really thought Naseema was in the guest chair, you guys. I really was just tripping like, wait, where's her episode? Why can't I find the Naseema episode? So this is long overdue because you are someone who I admire, I follow, I consume your content, I learn from, and I want everyone in the Side Hustle Pro land to know about you if they don't already. So I've already read your bio, but in your own words, how would you describe what you currently do?
You know what? Like right now, I'm honestly say I'm just a Black woman out here, or a mama out here trying to survive and make it. Like I'm just day to day with this. Like I'm gonna keep it 100 because that's the only way I know how to be. If you ever if you know me in real life, you know I'm just real. I'm from West Oakland. I've lived a life, and right now I'm just in a season of, entering into being a third time girl mom. And yeah, exactly. Like just really leaning into what I need to do in the moment. Mm-hmm. And in the moment right now, it's all about preparing for baby number 3. But being blessed in the fact that I have set some things in place for the last couple of years that has put me in a position where I can just do what I want to do when I want to do it.
Absolutely. I love that. That's what we strive for here. So tell us now, when did you get into nursing? Why did that become your initial career path?
Actually, it was my second career. So, and it's hecka funny. When I'll tell you this story, Nikayla, you're going to crack up. So, I always wanted to be in healthcare. I grew up with a single dad, which is very rare, right? But we were always on this cusp of like having too much money to like qualify for like welfare programs or anything, but like not having enough to like get by, really. So we were always like in struggle mode. And when I was growing up in the 80s and 90s, I had asthma really, really bad. My dad didn't believe in Western medicine, so he would wait until the
Oh,
very last minute. So I grew up going to Chinatown and doing herbal and stuff, but he would wait until the last minute until my asthma exacerbations were really, really bad to take me to a
uh-huh.
community clinic where then we would have to wait for hours and hours and hours and hours to get
What?
medication, which if you can't breathe,
I have
it's
asthma too, so I'm
excruciating.
already just like, I know exactly how you feel. I know exactly how that feels.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, like, I just saw how broken the system was. And I wanted to be a part of that. And as a kid, you don't know all the ranges of options of healthcare. And so I wanted to be a pediatrician because I was like, okay, a kid's doctor can fix this, right? And so I went into USC. I went to University of Southern California and I started taking my pre-med classes. And then I actually learned what doctors did. And no
Yeah.
shade to doctors, but I really wanted to affect the whole healthcare system and how, and enable more access to people who had limited access. And so I was like, that's not really what doctors do. And I'm really not feeling this organic chemistry. So let me look, let me look through the course catalog and see what I could do. And I ended up landing in healthcare administration, got a
Okay.
master's in healthcare administration, and then, saw the bureaucracy behind the healthcare system and learned all these things. And I wasn't really affecting change. But what happened was I was working with nurses that had so much autonomy and they were really there with the patients. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And they had so much autonomy. I was like, you know what? I'm single. I'm about to get my nursing degree, move to
Yep.
Dubai, be a princess.
Dubai.
Girl, listen, I had this all planned out. Okay, listen. I'm about to be like a princess fourth wife because I feel like the first and second wives have a lot of obligation. The fourth wife, you might have to have like one baby, but you don't really got to do nothing. I can have a driver, a chauffeur, and stuff, and I can still be a nurse and have all this autonomy. Girl, I had all this
You are
planned out.
funny. You had it
And
all
so,
figured out.
girl, I
So
was
what
like,
happened?
listen, I had a baby. No, I ended up working as a nurse in the San Francisco Bay Area where we make more money than most nurses in the world. And so,
Mhm.
like, for me to travel to even internationally, it didn't make financial sense. Then had a
Mhm.
baby and kind of settled down and got into
Yep.
this life. And so stayed here. This is my home. My family is here, kind of got comfortable, but love nursing.
Yep.
And so, yeah, so it was my second career,
That's
but
how that
really, really loved it. And I wish I started as a nurse. Like, I tell
really.
anybody, be a nurse.
Yeah,
Yes.
be a nurse.
Yes.
Listen, you need to talk to my mom because so I'm one of three daughters and one son, fun fact. And she is a nurse and she just tried her hardest to make one of us a nurse. And it
Because
just
your
didn't
mama
work
know
out.
what's up.
She was like, it's good
What's up?
money. She was like, it's guaranteed work. Listen, all of y'all who are considering a second career or first career, look into nursing.
Yes.
Now, you talk a lot about your journey of paying off $1 million in debt. And every time
Yes.
I listen to this and see that headline, I'm like, please break this down for me. Like, how did that
Yeah.
amount of debt come to be?
You know what's crazy, Nikayla, is that as I was going on this journey of paying off debt, I didn't add up in the back end, like how much total
Yeah.
I had paid off until I was
Mm,
applying to go to my league's retreat. And
okay. Fun fact, that's where we met for the first time at the My Taught You retreat. I can't believe it's been
Yes.
4 years.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's been a long time, but this was where the first retreat because I went to both of them. So
Oh, okay,
I was
okay.
sitting down and I was like, let me just talk about like my journey a little bit. Let me add up these numbers. And that's when I had finished paying off everything, including my house. And I'll break down what the $1 million in debt was. But I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is damn near $1 million. This is about to be a hitter headline. You know what when I'm writing this essay,
Listen.
like, hey, I'm looking like I'm really doing something out here. But how it really started was, I was a single mom. I knew I was going to be a single mom, but a year, like when my daughter was turning a year old, I had been making really good money as a nurse. I had 2 jobs. I had like a part-time benefited job and then a full-time, and then like a per diem kind of job. And so I was making like over $200,000 a year. And I've always been that person, Nikayla, that everybody thought made it because I always know how to make money. So I was
Mm-hmm.
Instagram popping. I had the brand new house. I have a luxury car.
Yep.
I'm out here doing it, but I know like I'm broke. Like I had to
Mm-hmm.
put 36 windows in my house and I had to ask my sister for some
What?
money. And I was like,
What?
this guy, not 36 windows, but blinds
Something's
on
not
the
adding up.
windows.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I
yeah.
was just like, this don't make no sense. Like I make too much money to be broke. But then
Mm-hmm.
I always thought, like, in order to understand finances, you really need to like study finances, like PhD
Yep.
level study. And
Yep.
because I thought, you know, learning about money was like learning how to trade and like being on the stock market floor, like trading places and like understanding all of that.
Right, right,
When it
right.
really wasn't about that. It's really about being intentional about what's coming in and going out. But
Mm-hmm.
who taught me that? Nobody taught me
Yeah.
that. Everybody was always like, do what you need to do by any means necessary. Go to the best school, get that job, whatever. And so for everybody, it seemed like I had it together, but I knew in my heart I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. And so I was like, hey, Naseema, like, for the first time in your life, you're not in school. So sit down and actually start learning about finances. And the way that I learned about finances was like, I changed my social media to only follow accounts like debt free accounts and things that would inspire me. I
Mm-hmm.
listened to personal finance podcasts. I read a ton of personal finance books. But not only did I do that, I took action every day to make sure I was doing something small to
Mm-hmm.
change the way I looked at money. And the biggest things that I learned how to do was to learn how to actually budget in advance, like tell my money where to go in advance. Because before,
Mm-hmm.
like I couldn't tell you what I spent my money on. Like I don't know
Mm.
how I was so broke.
Yeah.
So I learned how to tell my money what to do in advance. And then I created a system to strategically pay off my debt. Because what most of us do is we pay all our bills. And then sometimes if we have something left over at the end of the month, we'll put a little bit of something towards that
Right.
thing. And usually it's sporadic. It's like whatever the thing
Mm-hmm.
that catches
And
our
that never
attention.
works out because like you'll always
Exactly.
find something, your money will always find something to do with itself. So if you're counting on the
Exactly.
leftover for your savings, it's just not a good plan.
Exactly. So I went from, basically having no savings to being able
Mm-hmm.
to pay off like $4,000 to $9,000 a month in debt.
Wow.
Just because I had a plan.
Well, before you tell us that, what did
Mhm.
the debt consist of?
So the debt consisted of just your normal things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a loan to put a down payment on a house. So I borrowed against my 403B to put a down payment on my house. It
Yeah.
was a car because I lived in the suburbs now and I was driving an hour. So I needed a commuter car on top of my regular car. And then it was just like little small things. And in this process, I'll tell you, I got married and got
Mm-hmm.
a divorce. So it was his debts too, because I focused on a
Ooh.
debt snowball system. So it was the smallest debts to the largest debts. And most of it, and then I had $187,000 with student loans because when I
Mm-hmm.
decided to become a nurse, leave healthcare administration to be a nurse,
Yeah.
I went back to school. And that was the majority of my loans because for 6 years for undergrad and grad, I had like $40,000. But the way that I went to nursing school, I had a lot of debt. So it was almost $200,000 in student loan debts. So I put that all in a debt snowball. He had little debts, collections, cars, those things. And then I had like my little debts plus my student loans, which made up the
Mm-hmm.
majority of the debt. And
Yeah.
so just working through debt by debt. And the way that the debt snowball works is you focus intentionally on one debt. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
really honed in onto one goal, and then you meet that goal, it really gives you momentum to go on to the next thing. And the debt snowball really works because it works on emotion. So the whole premise
Mm-hmm.
is we don't math our way into debt. We get into debt
Mm-hmm.
based on emotions. And that's the way that we have to get out of debt. And so I would knock out, like focus, throw every single dollar towards one debt while paying the minimum balances on everything else. Once that debt was knocked out, then you go to the next debt and you have now that minimum payment that you used to pay on that to put towards this debt. So you pay it off faster and faster and faster, and it all snowballs. Well, like I said, I got married, went through a divorce, and like by the end of like me paying off debt, two things, really big things happened. Of course, I went through a divorce, and because of the way that I had to file, I ended up owing the IRS $30,000. And
Ooh.
because I was a breadwinner in the marriage and I live in California, which is
Yeah.
community property state, even though the reason why I got a divorce because I had an abusive husband that was actually in jail for for abusing me. I still had to pay him. So
Whoa.
at the end, I had about
Oh.
$20,000 left of student loan debt. I had like the IRS debt and I had his debt that I had to pay to him. And so it was about $50,000 worth of debt. I decided to sell my house because I
Okay.
relocated somewhere else. And so that was about $500,000 left of the
Okay.
debt. And so all of that added up to 978,000 something, nearly $1 million in debt.
Whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. And I mean, yeah, like quickly, if sometimes we hype up what a million is, right? A million is an equation, and
Yes.
if you have one loan for 200,000, you have a house loan, mortgage for this amount, like multiple six-figure debts, and boom, there you got it.
There you go.
So it's not as it's not as crazy as it sounds, but that's why I wanted to break it down, because
Exactly.
sometimes that can seem like,
Exactly.
oh, that will never happen to me. So how did you get the extra to pay that off? Was that through side hustling or just cutting back?
It was really about being intentional. And that's
Mhm.
why my platform is called Financially Intentional, because actually through this process, like I said, it was stuff going down in my life,
Yep.
obviously, like,
Yep.
so I was working my two jobs, but I still had to navigate between getting married, having a husband, then not having husband. So not
Mhm.
having the support there and a whole bunch of things. So I actually did not work more. I did not have a side hustle. I
At that
literally just
time.
had,
Yeah.
yeah, at that time, I literally just had to hone in on my goals and just zero based budgeting. I'm telling you, just zero based budgeting and intentionally setting a plan towards my debt. So when I created my budget, my debt goal was always at the top. That was the thing that I always wanted to hit first. And I adjusted my budget
Mhm.
around that. And that made all the difference for me to be able to pay off my debt really fast. It
Mhm.
wasn't any extra income. So a lot of times what you need to do is increase the gap between your spending and your earning. The gap, all I did was widen that gap by being intentional on how I spent my money.
Mhm.
And so no, I did not earn more at that point, and I did not actually start documenting this journey and start on my side hustle until my journey was almost over.
Okay. I think this
Yeah.
is so inspiring too, because you guys listening, you may not have a million in debt, but there may be student loan debt or even any amount of debt that's holding you back from doing certain things. You might think, once I pay this off, then I'll invest in my side hustle. Or once I do this, then I'll take this trip that I've always wanted to. And I think your story shows that, yes, you can focus on this and there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you'll be able to start working on these dreams. I'm not, thankfully, in any debt. I paid off my student loans a few years ago. Me and my husband both paid off our student loans, and now I'm just trying to optimize what I do with my money, what I tell
Yep.
my money to do. And
Yeah.
I know many of us might be in that situation. So when you did start financially intentional, how did you go about it? And what was your goal then once you created an official side hustle?
So this side hustle was very unintentional. So what happened was once I was going on this journey of like really understanding finances for the first time in my life, like I said,
Yeah.
everybody thought I had it figured out, but I
Mm-hmm.
hadn't. I was having like a slumber party. So I have a group of friends. We've been friends from like 12 years old, middle school, all of that stuff. So we were just kicking it at my house. We were having a slumber party. We have girls. All of us have girls. There's like a couple of boys sprinkled in there. And I was like, man, you guys really need to know this information. And so I was like, if I put this in a public forum, like Instagram just starting really, I was like, will you
Mm-hmm.
guys like listen to it? Because I hate repeating myself. I'm gonna just put everything that I'm doing out there and then you guys follow it. So it was just
Yep,
supposed
yep.
to be like this form that I used to show exactly what I was learning and
Mhm.
share it with my friends. And then it
Okay.
just started getting traction. And then, so Financially Intentional was kind of born as a brand from
Mhm.
like people just asking me, like, can you help me on
Right.
this journey? Very reluctantly. And first it was just me, like, sharing my story on
Yep, yep.
different media outlets. Like it got picked up by, different
Mhm.
podcasts and different things. And I was asked to speak at different places. So then, so I got receipts all the way back to like 2016 when I first started. And it was just really about sharing and tracking my journey and then having like some accountability around it.
Yeah.
And then in about 2018, around when I was having my second daughter, I was like, maybe I should monetize this a little bit. And, I'll always listen to your podcast.
Oh, thank you, thank you. How many years in were you at this point? That was 2 years in then, right?
So that was
2016,
after
you
I
said?
had paid off all my debt. And I was
Yeah.
more like not part of like debt free, but like discovering financial independence. And
Okay.
so I was transitioning and I was like, okay, so I have all this debt stuff, budgeting and stuff down. Now I'm
Mhm.
going into this world and where I want to start investing and growing my wealth, but I want to share along the way because now I have tackled all of these things successfully. So
Right.
listening to your show, I was like, okay, well, how can I turn this into a business?
Yep.
And then, I started like taking courses. Like I started with Danielle Leslie's course from
Yeah.
you. And you know what? It's crazy. She literally
What's
lived
crazy?
across the street from me
Get
during
out.
that time. And
Did you just
I
bump
heard
into
about
each
you.
other?
I've never ran into her in real life. But
Oh,
she literally lived across the street from me. I'm like, I'm taking your
that's
course, but
so
I'm like
funny.
literally like right across the street. Like our windows get like look at each other. It was like hella funny. But anyway,
Oh
I was
god.
like, I started taking courses and started formalizing
Mhm.
a business, had a baby, started a podcast, like did all these things and like kind of grew, but knew that, my passion is still in nursing because the
Right.
entrepreneur side, let me tell you something. This is hard, okay? I can
Yes,
go to
it
work,
is.
deliver a baby, have an emergency,
And guess
ride on a
what?
bed, back to the OR, do all that kind of stuff.
And that check
But
is
running a
coming
business,
regular.
and it's a nice check because if I stay over 5 minutes, I'm getting paid probably what more most people get paid in a year.
Exactly.
Like it's a good check. I make a good
It's a
amount of
good
money as a
check.
nurse, so it's
Mhm.
really really hard to want to go into like full time entrepreneurship, even though
Yeah.
I know I could. It's just
Yeah.
like I'm still very passionate about nursing. And so,
Mhm.
like, when people are like on this full on grind, and a lot of nurses are on this thing right now because a lot of burnout and all this kind of stuff
Yeah.
right now that's going into nursing, I'm like, hold on, pump your brakes. Like, nursing is still really
Nursing
lucrative.
is
There are so
listen,
many things you can do. You don't
if
have
I
to be
was
at
a
the
nurse,
bedside.
I would definitely still be side hustling. I don't think I would leave that nursing. I don't think I would leave that nursing check. But you raise such an important point about side hustling. Like you have options. You have options
Yes.
when you side hustle. Like all this money that you do make can go completely to your investments if you want. And completely to all
Yes.
your side projects, building out the business, testing, exploring. I mean, is that how you look at it? Like now that
I look
you,
at it like that totally. And the thing
yeah.
is, and to keep it real, Nikayla, like a lot of my money that I make in my business goes back into my business.
Mhm.
And I can make a lot of money, but the thing is,
Yeah.
to run a successful business, there's a lot that has to go into I'm not an entrepreneur, so I invest a
Yeah.
lot into making sure my systems are good, making sure I
Yeah.
understand how to run a business. So let me tell you something. If I didn't have a side hustle, I'd probably be able to retire. but what
Yeah.
I have done, I know is making such a great impact. I
Mhm.
continue to do it. And so, just the real side of side
Mhm.
hustling sometimes is that it's not as like golden as most people think. Like the entrepreneurial
Right.
world is really, really hard,
Mhm.
but I'm able to learn and grow and explore in ways. And I've been open to so many opportunities just because
Yes.
I opened up this like area that I did not even know existed. And
Right.
so I love the fact that I'm a side hustler,
Yes.
because I'm telling you, like the world of opportunity that has been open to me just because I shared my story and did
I
it
believe it.
imperfectly is
I
like,
believe it.
it's
It's
phenomenal. So,
amazing. And you
yeah.
raise another important point that I just want to stop and highlight right here, which is sometimes your gifts are multiple. Like we are multi-passionate people, and just because you have this talent in this area that you start as a side hustle, it doesn't mean you have to let go of something that is this God-given talent. You were meant to bless women in the work that you do. I see the work that you do on social media, and you talk about Black maternal health, and your lens and what you have experienced and what you're able to share sometimes with lawsuits, as a result. So,
Listen.
sometimes with consequences, it's going to bless so many people. So I just hope that you guys are getting what I'm trying to say, which is just basically that sometimes you are meant to be in both places. I don't know for how long. I don't know what that looks like, but your path and your journey will show you that.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And the thing is that listen, okay, this last like promotion I'm gonna give for nursing, but nursing is the ultimate side hustle. I mean, like the ultimate job
So,
to have if you side hustling. Like
okay,
it
why do
is
you say
like the
that?
cheat code because you're always going to be in demand.
Mhm.
AI cannot replace you. There's so many things you can do if you're not passionate
Yeah.
about one area. There's so many areas you can explore.
Mhm.
And I just feel like you can make it work for you where you can make a good amount of money so that if you want to take 3 months off and
Yes.
then have, work for 3 months and then do it again or travel the
Right.
world or do whatever, use your job to pay you to travel the world. You
Yeah.
can. There's so many opportunities if you just explore them that it's
Mhm.
almost like it's one of those jobs that you don't have to retire from because
Mhm.
it can be a passion project, but you just have to be able to be willing to explore that. And a lot of
Yes.
times, some people are always looking for quick fixes. And so they think
Mhm.
entrepreneurship, I don't know why they would think that,
That's
is
not
like
a
a
quick
quick
fix.
fix.
Yes.
But
Yes.
yeah, like, and the thing is that what I have learned, the biggest lesson I've learned about financial independence is that it's
Mhm.
not about reaching this number or reaching this ultimate goal. It's like every debt that you pay off, every investment that you make unlocks a level of freedom in your life to where you
Mhm.
take control, that much more control over your life in order to make whatever you're doing to produce income work for you. And it's just about that intentionality and saying that I am going to make a choice
Mhm.
to reverse my relationship with money so that money is working for me. That makes all
It's
the
funny. I
difference in the
just saw that
world.
little hand behind you. Y'all, you guys, you have to check out this episode on YouTube because I was like, wait, there's a hand growing
It's
out of her head.
not
No,
aliens,
no, we
girl.
have a
It's
guest.
aliens.
We have a guest star.
My
Oh
daughter
my
is always
gosh.
going to be, my little sidekick is always going to be in the
Yes.
background, no matter how long we have a talk before the episode on how she's supposed to act. She does good for a little while,
How
and
old is
then
she
she acts a
now?
fool.
I
She's
remember when she
4,
was a
girl.
baby. Oh my gosh.
Baby,
Wow.
yes.
Time flies. So yes, this was the biggest plug show ever for nursing. But
And it's
I think
Nurses Week, so it's only
it's
right.
this week when we're recording this.
Yes.
One of the things too is that no matter if it's nursing or whatever, you have to make sure that you're in a job that is going to allow you to side hustle. If you decide to go on this path, you have to be realistic. One of my friends, we always joke because there was one time I was giving a talk at, our alma mater, and I said something like, oh, of course, if you want to be a management consultant, you might not be able to side hustle. And she was like, I'm going into management consulting. And I was like, well, girl, we have to be
Right.
real about this. All right. You could do that for a few years, but then you got to move over to like a tech job or something where you can have
Yes.
a little more flexibility because
Hmm.
the full-time job does matter too. And the last thing I'll say about that is I remember when I was working at my last job before this. Y'all know what it is. I won't mention it because of the nature of this story. But I remember someone, sent me this role like, oh, we think you'll be great for this. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 I can't take this role. This role sounds like I'll be doing a lot more work. And like,
Hmm.
I'm just trying to lay low and side hustle. So
Yeah.
you got to sacrifice sometimes and say, all right, I'm not going to, not that you're not giving all you can at work, but you have to do a kind of job that allows you to do all you can and still have some
Hmm.
energy for your side hustle. So let's talk about
Exactly.
how you actually worked at that, though, how you actually juggled the
Hmm.
two, because it's tough. It's still tough. It's still long hours when you do go into the office. So how were you able to do that juggle?
Well, the thing is that with being a nurse, like it's easy to like once you're off, right? And so I
Hmm.
don't have to bring that work home with me.
Hmm.
And I don't, in all honesty, work life balance, kind of
Yeah.
thing is a farce.
Yes.
I have kids. I'm a single mom, and so I just make it work, and I do what I can.
Yeah.
And the thing is that it just has worked so far that I schedule just certain days where I do the
Hmm.
work, and what gets done gets done. What doesn't get done doesn't get done, and I don't put too much pressure on myself to do it.
Hmm.
I have time for where I'm like learning. I'm going to conferences, I'm in
Yeah.
masterminds, I do all those things, but I just make it work around my lifestyle. And we all have the
Hmm.
same 24 hours in a day. And it's
Yeah.
just, again, about being intentional with your time, but also
Hmm.
knowing when there's times to like pull back and rest. Like I'm totally in that
Yes.
mode right now,
Yes.
but I just make it work. But I think like you said, I have a job where I can totally separate from that when I leave. And
Mm.
so when I leave, like in my commute, I'm like consuming content so that I can share. A lot of my
Hmm.
videos you'll notice are in my car
I didn't
on
even
my
notice that.
commute.
I
If
didn't
you
even
look at
notice it
my
was
videos,
mostly
there's
in your
a
car.
lot of them in my car
I thought you were
on my
sitting
commute.
stationary. I gotta look again now.
Girl, my car drives itself. So I be putting I put it in
Listen,
self-driving mode
that
and
that is such a
I'm
that's
recording
such a
videos.
Bay comment. I feel like the Bay y'all are the most, you know,
Oh
y'all
yeah. We
y'all
got
are
we got
the first and the most. I can't even speak correctly, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, we're on it. Like
You're on
I
it.
work in a
That's so,
city where Tesla is created, like where the Tesla factory
of
is. So like
course.
at my job parking lot, all you see is Teslas. And so we
Yes.
be flexing on our auto drive out here.
Yes.
So
So your side hustle started out one way, I feel like, from
mhm,
watching and
mhm,
observing your journey. You were talking about the fire movement,
mhm.
and it shifted to so much more than that. So tell us a little more
Yeah.
about your interpretation of fire movement.
So, FIRE is the acronym for financially independent, retire early. I always flip those. And it's less more about the retire early part,
Hmm.
but in making work optional and having
Hmm.
options right now about how you
Yeah.
look at work. But it totally shifts your perspective because I don't know about you, Michaela, but I'm quite sure because I kind of know your story. But
Yeah.
we're taught that you go to school, you get a job, you work that job forever.
Yep.
It shifts that paradigm to say that you can work, put away a certain amount of money, and now
Hmm.
you can do whatever you want to do. You can work on your
Yes.
passion, or you can work, but
Hmm.
if somebody is messing with you, you could throw the deuces at any time, like I love
Right.
to do, right?
Yes, yes.
I love to
Those are
throw
some
the
of my
deuces.
favorite stories. You got to go over to her Instagram, Financially Intentional, and she has shared her stories of quitting or having to speak
Listen,
out and get fired. And guess what?
yeah,
She still bounces right back on her feet
right
with
on
another
back.
nursing
And
job.
yeah, and it's about that option. And that was a
Hmm.
total mindset shift to me. And that didn't come until after I paid off my debt. And I know you're good
Hmm.
friends with Jamila Supfront. And
Yes.
so throughout my journey, we were friends too. And then, she started really talking about the fire content, and I really got into fire because of her. And I was just like, man, like, so what do you mean? Like, I don't have to work forever. Like, I'm not chasing this corporate
Yeah.
ladder. Like, I'm just making sure I have enough saved and
Hmm.
invested so that, in a couple years, I don't have to work if I don't want to. Like, that's a
Yeah.
whole new paradigm shift for me. And like being able to share that. But what has actually
Yes.
happened is that has freed up a lot of things in me to be able to talk about generational wealth. So I talk about,
Mm.
how my kids are investing and how they
Yes.
learn about money and how
Yes.
like I'm putting them in a financial position, not to be spoiled. Cause let me tell you, my kids work hard now. Like they
Yes.
work for me. But so that they can opt out of a lot of the bullshit that we had to go through because
Mhm.
we weren't in a financial position, or our parents weren't in a financial position for us to do what we
Or
like,
just
not
didn't
what
even
wanted.
know, because a
Exactly.
lot of the
Not
information
even know
is
what's
gate kept.
possible. A
Yeah.
lot of the information is gate kept, and breaking it down to a level where my 9-year-old daughter will tell you all about investing, and she doesn't even understand when adults don't understand how to invest, because she's like, it's really that simple, you know. She
I
will
just picture
clown,
her
like
saying that. Yes,
she will
yes.
clown, like she
Like,
her
what
and my
don't you understand?
stepmom, girl, her and my stepmom got into it all the time. She's like, my stepmom's like, you don't understand. Like, you only know this because of your mom. And she's just like, well, I don't just understand why. You just don't get it, right? And I'll be like, girl, like,
I
pull back a
cannot.
little
I
bit.
cannot.
You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
that's how they think. But anyway,
Yeah.
but setting them up for, building wealth and being in a position to be able to opt out of a lot of stuff. I
Yes.
actually have been fortunate to have a platform where I can speak openly about maternal health issues, and speak
Mhm.
openly about the things that have happened in my job and that I've witnessed that has affected Black maternal health, and like
Yes.
actually giving people viable like solutions, like how do we address this situation, and being
Mhm.
able to highlight other platforms that help Black women in this situation. But it has morphed into just an opportunity for me to be able to affect change in a way that I
Mhm.
couldn't have done it just as a staff nurse, But
So,
because I can speak about these things and not have to worry about my money,
mhm.
I do. And because I'm one of those people, like I said, I just keep it real. Like oftentimes my
Yeah.
mouth can get me into trouble that my money can back me up out
Yeah.
of.
It's needed. It's needed. This information is
Yes.
needed. So when it comes to FIRE, so essentially you're putting money in the investment account where the returns, the percentage returns, which I believe you target 4%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then, once you have a certain amount, the returns that you'll get each year will cover, is it your minimum lifestyle or just your ideal lifestyle? Like what
It
you've,
depends on what you're going for, right?
yeah,
So there's different kinds of fire. There's like fat
yeah.
fire, lean fire, coast fire, barista
Oh,
fire. So there's
Lord.
all these things. I mean, like Google, like, but the thing
Yeah.
is that it should cover a portion of your expenses right now. So right now, I'm on maternity leave. So I was very intentional before I went out and like cut my
Hmm.
expenses down to be able to like live off of a minimum amount of money without having to worry about bringing in extra
Hmm.
money from my business. Because if
Yeah.
I don't feel like shooting content for a brand, if I
Right.
don't feel like putting a podcast out, I don't want to have to do that. And
Yeah.
so it's about like understanding in that moment or in the future what your expenses are going to be at that time, and having
Hmm.
investments be able to cover that. Investments are sources of income to be able to cover that. So, yeah, that's what it's about. So, traditionally, you want to look at it like this. So,
Hmm.
your fire number is going to be 25 times your expenses. And so, if it takes you like $40,000, we like to use that example because it's easy to multiply by
Hmm.
25. But if your expenses, your living expenses, transportation, all that stuff, is $40,000 a year, you want to have 25 times that, which is $1 million in investments or savings. And then, according to the safe withdrawal rate, which is
Hmm.
4%, you can take $40,000 a year off of those investments to live off of without having to generate any other income. And so that's how fire works. But there's different levels. If you know
Hmm.
that you're getting, like, I live in California, so I get state disability. If you know that
Hmm.
your state disability is going to be a couple $1,000s a month, then that's less that you need to put into that number.
Hmm.
So like it's just different ways to factor into
Yes.
those things. But and that's to say that you can reach different levels of fire, or you don't have to be completely like at your fire number to be able to unlock levels of freedom in your life where you don't have to necessarily trade time for money.
Now, As someone who lives in a very expensive city, I also live in, I live in New York City. You live in San Francisco or Oakland. Which one are you in now? Are you
Well, I live like in a suburb, like east.
in the
It's
suburb?
called
Yeah,
Brentwood.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Still the Bay, right?
I live in the Bay. Yeah.
What does cutting back look like for you as like someone who's side hustling? You're working full time as a nurse, but you're also cutting back. What does cutting back look like when you are in an expensive city?
Really, it's just like getting your income in check. So the two biggest
Hmm.
things that you're going to usually have in your budget is your housing expenses and your transportation expenses. For
Yes.
me, I try to minimize those expenses. So before I went on maternity leave, like I paid off my Tesla. Like I don't have a car. No, that was $1,100 a month. That's a lot of money, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's done, right? I always make it so my housing expenses are way less than 30% of my income. And
Hmm.
a lot of people is like, that's impossible in the Bay Area. But what I always do is, even if I'm renting, I always find a place where I have an extra room where I can rent that out if I
Okay.
need to. And I rent it out to travel nurses or nurses that
Okay.
I work with. Because a lot of nurses, even if they're not travel nurses, they're staff nurses, but they live in like Georgia, Florida, Canada,
Mm.
even they come down
Hmm.
here and they want a place to stay. And nurses
Yes.
come and they work. They're quiet, they're background check, they're screened. I have
Yeah.
kids in my house, so they don't bother me. Actually, they become part of my family.
Oh,
Um,
that's so smart. Like, is there a website
yeah,
just to rent to travel nurses? Because if
there
I could just do
is.
that, I'm like, okay, I
No,
trust that. I trust that. Okay, you got to tell
there
us that
is.
link.
Like, no, it's Furnish Finders. So Furnish
Furnish
Finders,
finders.
yeah,
Okay.
and then they have like a section just for travel nurses, but also there's like
Ah.
Facebook groups that are just travel
Hmm.
nurses looking for housing, and you can post in there. But
Yes.
usually it's word of mouth because once one
Hmm.
travel nurse knows, or if somebody, I'm a nurse, so I work
Yeah.
if a staff, they need somewhere to stay, they're going to come stay with you. So it's really not that hard to
Mm.
find really reliable people. And like I said, most people stay with me for months or years even. And so
Wow.
that's like a third or more of my housing costs. So that's cut down. And then what gets me and what gets most people is like those little things that you spend hella money on that you don't need to spend money on. Like when you go to Target or you go grocery shopping or you go out to
Listen,
eat.
I knew you were gonna
Like,
try to come for me like this. I knew you were gonna start talking about this.
listen, like you really have to like, so I had to put that budget in check. Like, do I need to
Hmm.
go to Target? Like, I
Yeah.
be like making up any reason to go to Target, and it's really bad. Like, do I really need to go to Target, or do we
Right.
really got to eat out like today? Like, my kids don't even eat, like for real, for real. So, like, why are we going to this restaurant? Like, so just
Right.
so I could be like, I want to eat something good and spend hella money.
Yeah.
Like, it's like checking those expenses and like really like getting that number. Like, how much does it
Mhm.
really take for you to live every month? And the thing
Yeah.
is, Nikayla, if you ask most people, they really cannot tell you how much they spend every month.
Mhm.
And I know
That's
I
so
have to,
true. That's so true.
and
We
that's,
had to get ourselves in check with that too. Like, I mean, Moyo was always asking me, like, he wants to fill out the spreadsheet. I'm like, no, leave me alone.
Demo, yo,
And finally, I
just
have
give you a
come.
number that
He's
you
like, just
gotta
give me
stay
a number.
under. Yeah.
Because when you face the number, that's when you really have to come to terms with how much you spend on certain things. And
Yeah.
but it's good because once you have that, you can then do all these calculations you need, right? Like okay, what would
Yeah.
25 times my income look like, and all of, or expenses and all this other stuff.
And the thing is, it's not about deprivation. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, I really didn't need those things in Target, but I
Yeah.
spend a lot of money on the things that I'm passionate about, like my
Yes.
car. Like, I'm very passionate about that. So I adjust
Yeah.
my budget to spend on that. Vacations. Like, my
Hmm.
kids have been to Disneyland and Great Wolf Lodge so much. Like, we have towers of
I
ears,
love
you
yeah,
know?
that's a category that I have to have in my life
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And this conversation is definitely taken more of a financial turn than we expected, but I still love it because I feel that a lot of times when we start side hustling and we have this discretionary income, if we're not careful, you
Yep.
can blow that instead of
Yep.
being able to do so much more with it.
Hmm. It's called lifestyle inflation.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
but keeping that
Lifestyle
number in
inflation.
check. Yes,
Yep.
keeping that number in check. Like if you know you can't spend more than $5,000 a month,
Yeah.
you figure out what you're passionate about to spend that money on, and then you
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like you're deprived. So
Yeah.
that's how I've done it in different stages of life. And there's times where
Yeah.
I do ball out, but being able to rein in that money is and that
Yes.
spending is what's important.
And before we get into the lightning round, I'd love if you could touch on disability insurance a little bit more,
Mhm.
because you had a great episode on it, and I'll link to it, where you touch on you might have great insurance and you might have awesome benefits from your job, but never rely solely on what your job gives you for any of these categories. So you take out, of course, California has state, right? But then you take
Mhm.
out your own personal disability insurance. Like, how do you go about that?
Yes. Yes. So it's always important, just like anything else, life insurance,
Hmm.
anything, to have your own policies in place.
Yeah.
And what I like to do, and let me tell you, there's a lot of scammers in this industry, so be very careful.
That's part of what makes it intimidating, honestly. It's like, who do I trust? Who do I trust
Exactly.
with sharing what I make and, looking inside my books and all this other stuff? That is the
Hmm.
thing that intimidates me sometimes. You hear so many horror stories and you honestly, you don't know these people, right?
Right. When you're looking for a financial advisor, somebody who
Hmm.
is doing insurance for you, you want
Yeah.
to look for somebody who is independent. For like, okay, so on my podcast I work with Aquania Escarnate, and she's
Hmm.
in the personal finance space too, but she
Yes.
is an independent licensed insurance agent, meaning that she's not tied to any one company. So her
Hmm.
interest is always going to be to get you the best rate,
Hmm.
period. When you
Yeah.
look for financial advisors or somebody to help you with your finances, you want to work with somebody that is a fee only, like fiduciary advisor. And fiduciary means that they are licensed to only work in your best interest. And you would think that all licensed agents are fiduciaries, but they're not. And the fee
Mm.
only just means that, okay, like you're sitting down for a session, you're going to pay them like $300 for a session, and then they're going to put together a plan specifically for you. Oftentimes
Hmm.
you'll get financial advice for free, or somebody will
Yeah.
set up an insurance thing, policy for you for free. It's not free. Their best interest is getting the highest commission for themselves. And so they'll put you in a policy for them that
Hmm.
pays them in the front end. So there's a lot of policies
Mm.
out there that like they're incentivized to sell you because they make a lot of money, almost 50% of the premiums that you put up front.
Wow.
So like as far as disability insurance, you're guaranteed to get hurt at a job. Like life
Yeah.
insurance, like you're gonna die or whatever. We're
Yeah.
guaranteed to die. But like most people are injured in some kind of way where they can't do their job, or they have to
Hmm.
go out for a pregnancy or whatever, right? And so
Right.
disability insurance is something that you can get through your job, but you
Hmm.
also want to have a separate policy in place just in case, like you lose that job, something happens, they change their benefits every year, you don't know
Yes.
how it applies. And so I have state disability insurance, I have disability insurance, long-term disability insurance through my job, and I also have long-term disability insurance on my own. And I've
Hmm.
had that in place for years. And the way that it's working right now with my maternity leave is that I'm high risk. I'm 42, or I'll be 42 on Monday. And so I had to go out of work early. So, with my long term disability policy, it kicks in after 90 days to supplement your income in
Okay.
order to make you whole. So, sure, I have state disability, which starts after 10 days after you're out. So that started, plus like then you can use your sick leave and your vacation at your job, but that eventually runs out if you're not working, right?
Yeah.
So then
Right.
after 90 days, your long-term disability policy kicks in, that you just get paid a certain benefit to cover your expenses, and it's only going to cover up to 60% of your expenses, but it's not taxed, so sometimes it's
Okay.
actually more than what you bring home. But the incentive is like you can't, it's not going to replace all of your income because then nobody will want to go back to work. So
Right, right.
that's how it works. But you should
Right.
always have that policy in place because
Yes.
Lord forbid you be out of work for longer
Uh-huh.
than 90 days. But in that case, you
Whew,
need
yeah.
something to cover your income
Hmm.
because you still got bills to pay.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. So, and this applies
Yes.
to everyone, all of us, like
Yes.
whether you are
Yes.
side hustler, entrepreneur, full time corporate job, what have you. I thought
Mm-hmm.
this was such an important conversation. It's something that I'm working on right now. Let me know if
Yes.
you guys want me to share more about my journey as I, finalize a plan and all of that good stuff. But I saw an entrepreneur friend who's recently going through unexpected injury.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we work for ourselves, it's something to think about with side hustling. When you work for yourself and you are the business, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am the podcaster. I am the content creator. If I'm down and I can't make content, then who's paying me,
Exactly. And so that's something that we talk about in the last episode I think I did about disability insurance for
Yes.
entrepreneurs is super important.
Yes.
So in two ways, if you've been an entrepreneur for a while, to get a
Yeah.
disability policy, they're going to want to see a couple of years of income so that they can cover
Yeah.
you. But if you're side hustling, you use your
Yeah.
work income to be able to cover that. Like, so if you know that you're going to transition like to be a full-time entrepreneur, it's a good time
Yeah.
to get a lot of policies in place because it's going to be based off of
Mm,
like the salary that you're making at your job and it's less
yeah.
things that you have to prove. So just something to
Yeah.
think about, like if you really are transitioning into full-time
Mm.
entrepreneurship, like get those things in place now.
Nice.
Mhm.
That's a really big tip. That's a really good tip. And something that we forgot to even touch on is you getting into podcasting, right? So just, let's briefly touch on this.
Yes.
So you had the platform, you started on
Mhm.
Instagram. Why podcasting and what makes you continue to podcast?
Man, like, no lie, like, it's where I get my information from. And I really
Mhm.
feel like there in the personal finance space, like, it's male, pale, and stale. And I needed to hear voices like me. And you know what I'm
Oh
saying? Like,
my God.
I'm
That's the
like,
first time I've heard that. Male, pale,
what?
and stale. Okay.
Shout out to Verna. That's my girl. She always uses that.
Okay.
But
Okay.
yes. And so I was like, man, we need to like hear from we need more voices like
Yeah.
me. And initially I was like, well, there's no lack of like personal finance podcasts out there. So let me just niche down and speak specifically to nurses. And when, of course,
Yeah.
when I wanted to do my podcast, of course, I reached out to my girl, Nikayla, like, oh yeah, we gotta take this course, girl. We
Oh
gotta do it
yes,
right the first time. Yes,
podcast
I am
mogul
a
in the building.
podcast mogul. Yes. So yeah, I started like speaking specifically to nurses and about financial independence in nursing. But I just know that my voice is needed across the board. So recently,
Mhm.
in December, I did a rebrand where I just kind of generalized just my
Okay.
audience because I've always had
Yeah.
the overarching brand, financially intentional,
Right.
but I
Right.
just
Right.
made it and opened it up for everyone because it really was like if you even listen to my old Nurses on Fire podcast, like there's
Yeah.
nothing that it was specific to nurses that nobody else could
Mhm.
do. But I just thought
Yeah.
I needed a niche. But
Yeah. And sometimes you could overly niche too. Sometimes you could
yes.
overly niche because it's like then you always have to find nurses. Then it always has to be around
Hmm.
a nurse's story. So I understand the
Yes.
challenge with that too.
Yes. Yes. But but I just love podcasting because like I really feel like people just need to hear different voices and
Yes.
there is such a void of voices like ours out there that talk about
Mhm.
this information in a digestible way. Plus, there are so many barriers in personal finance. There's so much gatekeeping intentionally and unintentionally in the finance space for really simple concepts and access to
Yeah.
things that ways to access things that we didn't even know was possible for us, but it's right in
Mhm.
front of us.
Mhm.
But we just didn't know was there. And so
Right.
to hear from somebody who has came from the struggle, who has gone through all those things,
Mhm.
and who can keep it real with you 100%, I feel was
Yes.
needed. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And as it relates to gatekeeping, if I was to even just oversimplify it, take away some of the problematic aspects of it, it comes down to people share with the people they know. And you're more
Mm-hmm.
likely to know people who look like you and hang out and, have friends. So it's being, this information is being circulated in circles that might not look like you because you're not friends with that crew. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
find your crew and make sure
Yep.
that if you are that person that has that information that you're realizing that the rest of your crew doesn't have, you need to start sharing that. Like you are missing out on a gift. You're missing out on sharing something that you're meant to share because there's a reason why you know it. There's a reason why it comes so easily to you. So I'm just thankful that you have this information. And like before this interview started, I was saying like, can I hit you up? Because like I need some more support and I need guidance from someone who has done it. And it's too much.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are like, oh, I can just Google that. I don't know about you, but there's a lot of stuff on Google. I don't want to
Yeah.
Google anymore. Like, this is why I
Yeah.
pay for courses. I want to go
Thank
to
you.
someone and I want to follow your roadmap. I want to just tell me the steps. All right. I'm
Yeah.
at a just tell me the steps phase of life. All right. I will
Yeah,
follow.
100%. But the thing is, and and the unfortunate thing about this industry is
Mhm.
that there's also a lot of room for people to take advantage of you. And
Yes.
so a
Yes.
lot of people are really leery.
Hmm.
And I ain't got no reason to take advantage of you. I'm not a scammer.
Right. I mean, you obviously
But
you
the
have
thing
to
is
what's it
that
called?
I
You have to do
only
your due
look.
diligence, and
Yes,
research. You can't
exactly.
just throw money at anybody.
Exactly.
But once you've done that, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be able to trust that people are really
Hmm.
have your best interest at heart. And a lot of people, unfortunately can't get past that step. But,
No.
unfortunately, for our communities, we have been historically taken advantage of financially.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
there's a lot of mistrust. So I
Hmm.
get it. And I'm
Yeah.
here. And so a lot of the things that I teach and talk about, I give a lot of free game because I don't want you to
Yeah.
think that these are things that you have to pay for, but it is something
Right.
that you have to be intentional about and actually take
Hmm.
action on. And
Yep.
should, as long as you're doing what you have to do, I don't care if you pay me. I just want you to
Yeah.
get the stuff in place for yourself because it's that important for you.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
another hint at why producing content is so helpful because
Hmm.
the free game that you share is actually helping people to see that you're qualified and trust you. And so they may
Yeah.
not come right away, but after a year or two or listening to you, it's worth the wait to have that customer, that client that just is really rides for you. Like, no, Nikayla knows her stuff. Naseema knows her
Yes.
stuff. And
Yes.
that's that. Thank you so much. We're going to jump into the lightning round. I could go on and on, but clearly, like I said, we need a side conversation with you. So we're going to jump into a quick lightning round. You know the deal. Just answer the first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So number one, what is a top resource that has helped you in your business that you can share with the Side Hustle Pro audience?
Side Hustle Pro. I always turn to Nikayla if I need something for her. I've got my website designer. I got my podcast started. I got my business started from Nikayla. You rock, girl.
Yes. Number two, who is a non-celebrity Black woman entrepreneur who you'd want to switch places with for a day and why?
I love me some My Leak. Like, she's the
I
first
knew you were
person.
going to say that. Yep.
And
Yep.
it's crazy.
Relatable content.
Yeah, I just love her. I love how she keeps it real, but very smart. She's very intentionally knowledgeable. Whatever she doesn't know, she
Yes.
like drills it down into it and like
Yes.
gets to know it. She's always chock full of resources. I can't tell you the amount of things that I bought because my leak suggested it. But I love me some My Leak. We're birthday twins.
Mhm.
She's a couple of years older than me, but I just feel like she's like one of the few people that Black women. I'm just like I love me some My Leak.
Yes.
Mhm.
Relatable content. I feel the
Yes.
same. Number three, what's a non-negotiable part of your day these days?
If don't feel like doing it, I'm not gonna do it. It's a no. It's a solid no.
It's a solid no. I love that.
No.
Number four, what's a personal habit about you that you think has significantly helped you in business?
I think consistency. Just being able to even if it's just a little bit is still doing something. So I'm gonna
Yes.
consistently be doing something, and I'm gonna be
Mhm.
consistently like working on myself. And so
Yes.
consistency is where it's
Yes.
at.
And finally, number 5, what is your parting advice for fellow Black women entrepreneurs who want to be their own boss or be a steady side hustler, but are worried about losing or compromising a steady paycheck?
I think it's about taking action, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the consistency part again. Small daily actions are bigger
Yes.
than what you think they add up to. Like we overestimate what we can do in a day, but we
Mm-hmm.
underestimate what we can do in a year by taking small
Yeah.
intentional actions. So just take those actions. Stop with the analysis paralysis and just do one thing today, right
Yes.
now.
Yes. Just one thing. You're so right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so big on the one thing, man.
The
I'm
one
so big
thing.
on the one thing because whenever I get overwhelmed, I have to bring it back to that. I have to say, all right, what's the one thing I want to accomplish today? And that's it.
That's
So I'm
it.
thinking about doing a one thing a day challenge or something along the lines of that. You guys, let me know if you're interested in that.
That would
But
be
with
dope.
that, listen, thank you so much for being in the guest chair, Naseema. Where can people connect with you and Financially Intentional after this episode?
So I'm at most places financially intentional. I'm mostly on Instagram. Just hit me up, DM me. I'm very responsive there. But yeah, financially intentional. You can check out all my resources there, financiallyintentional.com and the Financially Intentional podcast. Listen out, guys. It's great.
All right, you guys. And there you have it. I'll talk to you next week. Thank you again, Naseema. And you guys, we'll chat next week. Hey guys, thanks for listening to Side Hustle Pro. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. It helps other side hustlers just like you to find the show. And if you want to hear more from me, you can follow me on Instagram at Side Hustle Pro. Plus, sign up for my 6-bullet Saturday newsletter at sidehustlepro.co/newsletter. When you sign up, you will receive weekly nuggets from me, including what I'm up to, personal lessons, and my business tip of the week. Again, that's sidehustlepro.co/newsletter to sign up. Talk to you soon.